She faced howling wind, freezing rain, and climbed three of the UK's highest peaks in just 24 hours, all while still rebuilding her strength after a personal health battle. But what she didn't expect was the grueling physical toll and the atrocious weather that nearly broke her team, and a moment that had her questioning if she'd make it to the top. We got an exclusive peek into her candid chat at Wimbledon, where she revealed the one thing that kept her going, and why a former tennis star's question left her with a smile that spoke volumes. So stick around, because what she said next about stoically British determination might just change how you see the future queen. But before we get to that rain-soaked mountain drama, we need to rewind just a few days to the manicured lawns of SW19, where a seemingly casual conversation revealed a side of royalty you rarely hear. If her resilience inspired you even a little, smash that like button and subscribe with notifications on, because the moment you miss a story like this, you miss what real strength looks like. I'm coming to you with a story that, in my opinion, perfectly captures why Catherine, Princess of Wales, has quietly become the monarchy's most relatable figure in decades. Picture this. It's the fourth day of the Wimbledon Championships, the summer of 2026, the strawberries are overpriced, the Pimm's is flowing, and there's a genuine buzz because the princess herself has decided to show up, not in a ceremonial box to wave politely, but to watch a British player grind it out on court one. She sits alongside Deborah Jevons, the chairwoman of the All England Lawn Tennis Club, and Tim Henman, a man who spent his entire career making British tennis fans believe just enough before dashing their hopes in a semifinal. Now, according to reports, what happened next wasn't a formal interview. It was one of those wonderfully unpolished snippets captured by the Overheard at Wimbledon series, the kind of social media gold that makes you feel like you're eavesdropping on a private box. And in that snippet, Catherine drops a phrase that instantly became a headline. She calls the weather on her recent Three Peaks challenge atrocious, and the entire experience a very sort of stoically British thing to do. Now, I have to tell you, I actually laughed when I heard that because it's so perfectly accurate. If you've ever stood in a damp field in the Lake District while sideways rain soaks through your supposedly waterproof jacket, surrounded by people cheerfully saying, "We'll be reet," you know exactly what she means. But the real story isn't just the weather. It's the fact that this wasn't a sponsored endurance stunt for a glossy magazine. Sources claim this was personal. This challenge, climbing Ben Nevis in Scotland, Scafell Pike in England, and Snowdon in Wales within 24 hours, was her way of raising money for the Royal Marsden Cancer Charity, a cause intimately connected to her own life over the past 2 years. And I think that's where the narrative shifts from a simple royal photo op to something deeply human. Let's not forget, we're talking about a future queen who, according to previously confirmed palace statements, underwent major abdominal surgery in early 2024 and then faced a cancer diagnosis that required preventative chemotherapy. The world watched her announce it in that now famous video message, sitting on a bench, looking vulnerable but composed. Fast forward to June 2026, and she's scrambling up slippery scree slopes in pitch darkness, soaked to the bone, powered by what she later described as the generosity of strangers. To me, that's not just a nice charity story. That's a masterclass in redefining what strength looks like. And honestly, it's way more compelling than any polished palace press release. The details Henman teases out are far more revealing than your standard royal small talk. In the recording, Henman, doing his best polite but curious interviewer impression, asks her about the preparation and whether she really managed the entire thing in 24 hours. She doesn't just give a yes or no. She leans in and explains that part of the journey was trying to enjoy the process, the training beforehand, and making time during the walk to actually meet people rather than just sprinting to the summit. This, to me, is classic Catherine. She's mastered the art of turning a grueling physical ordeal into a community meet and greet without making it sound fake. According to reports from those who were there on the mountainside, she stopped to chat with fellow hikers, posed for selfies while looking like a drowned cat, and reportedly insisted on thanking volunteers even when the wind was loud enough to cancel out human speech. The weather, she admitted to Henman, was atrocious. Everybody got soaked through. Yet the mood, she said, was one of defiant optimism. You're soaking wet and everyone's going, come on, we can do it. That's the British spirit in a nutshell. And I have to say, as someone who has endured a British summer camping trip, I felt that statement in my bones. But there's a layer here that I think many people missed. When Henman followed up to confirm the charity link, Catherine didn't just name drop the Royal Marsden. She described being blown away by all the donations and said that's what keeps you going, knowing you're doing it for a good cause. Then she used a phrase that landed differently for those of us who have followed her health journey: keeps you going through the hard times. That choice of words is significant. It's a subtle nod, I believe, to a period of her life that was defined by hospital visits, uncertainty, and the quiet, private fear that comes with a cancer diagnosis. She's never been one to give graphic details. She's far too dignified for that. But the subtext is unmistakable. The hard times weren't just the rain on Scafell Pike. They were the months of treatment that came before she could even think about lacing up a hiking boot. And that makes the whole endeavor feel less like a celebrity challenge and more like a personal pilgrimage.
Address the stoically British comment directly because it's easy to roll your eyes at that kind of phrasing. In the wrong hands, it sounds like a parody of a stale upper-class cliché. But from Catherine, who has spent years navigating a tabloid press that once dubbed her Weighty Katie and later Duchess Doolittle for a perceived lack of work, this feels intentional. According to Palace insiders who spoke to various news outlets, she has been actively working to reshape her public image around resilience and relatable grit, not just fashion and formal engagements. The Three Peaks Challenge is arguably the most vivid manifestation of that strategy. Kensington Palace reportedly said they believe the expedition was a royal first, with Catherine being the first member of the royal family to complete the Three Peaks Challenge. Now, I'm not a royal historian, but I can't think of another senior royal who has voluntarily done something so physically punishing just to fundraise in wellies. And the fact that she completed it in the driving rain with her husband William and all three kids greeting her at the finish line, alongside her parents Carol and Michael Middleton and brother James, makes it a family affair that screams modern monarchy without having to say a word. I personally find it incredibly smart. It's an image that money can't buy unless you hire a brilliant PR team and then actually go do the hard thing yourself. And that's the key. She actually did it. No shortcuts, no helicopter between peaks, according to those familiar with the planning, just 24 hours of grit. Now, let's pause and take a deeper look at the charity itself, because I think understanding why the Royal Marsden matters to Catherine is essential to grasping the full emotional weight of the story. The Royal Marsden is a world-leading cancer center, and Catherine became its royal patron way back in 2011, long before her own life was touched so directly by the disease. According to the charity's own records, it specializes in diagnosis, treatment, and groundbreaking research. When the princess underwent her own treatment there, something that was officially confirmed in 2024 when she announced she was receiving care from the hospital, the patronage became deeply personal. Visiting patients, speaking to staff, and now fundraising through extreme physical challenges transforms her role from figurehead to genuine ambassador. The phrase she used in her statement about the challenge was "explore life beyond diagnosis." That's not just a fundraising tagline, it's a mantra for cancer survivors worldwide. And I think it's important to note that while we're careful not to draw direct parallels between her experience and that of every patient, according to medical experts, engaging in ambitious physical goals after treatment can be both psychological and physically therapeutic. The princess hasn't given a detailed medical briefing, and she shouldn't have to, but seeing her climb mountains just 2 years after a major health scare sends a powerful message about what post-treatment life can look like. Now, I want to inject a little light humor here because the British weather description was so vivid, I can't help but picture the logistics. Imagine being the aide assigned to carry the snacks. Reports suggest the team had to navigate the notorious Scottish midges on Ben Nevis, then drive through the night down to the Lake District where cloud cover can reduce visibility to basically the end of your nose, and then push on to Snowdon in North Wales, a mountain that famously has a train running to its summit, but which they obviously didn't take. Doing that in 24 hours is a logistical puzzle that would stress out a military planner. And through it all, Catherine is reportedly not complaining, just embracing the misery with a smile. That, my friends, is a level of resilience that makes me question my own life choices when I complain about a delayed train. But there's a serious angle here, too. By showing up sopping wet and genuinely exhausted, she's shattering the old royal mold of untouchable perfection. For decades, the monarchy's approach to public engagement was carefully orchestrated and safely dull. Here, according to sources who spoke to GB News and other outlets, the images of her at the finish line were not retouched fantasy shots. Her hair was plastered to her head. The children reportedly looked a bit confused about why mommy smelled like a wet dog. And William, grinning, was there with what I can only imagine was a thermos of tea. It's a family snapshot that feels authentic in an era where so much of public life feels curated to death. I actually believe that's why the donations poured in. She said she was blown away by the generosity, and I suspect that's because people felt connected to the struggle. They saw a future queen doing something undeniably difficult and profoundly human. It's a far cry from ribbon-cutting ceremonies. But we need to loop back to Wimbledon because the way the story broke is a lesson in modern media savvy. The Overheard at Wimbledon series is a clever bit of content marketing by the All England Club, capturing unfiltered chatter between celebrities and royals in the stands. Most of the time, it's just funny remarks about line calls or the price of a gin and tonic. This time, it gave us a window into a conversation that felt like an intimate debrief between friends. Tim Henman, bless his heart, isn't a trained journalist, but he asked exactly the right questions. How was the preparation? Did you really do it in 24 hours? And was it for charity? According to the recording, Catherine's responses were thoughtful, but what struck me was her tone. There was no polished teleprompter cadence. She spoke like someone genuinely still processing the enormity of what she had achieved. And when she laughed about the weather being atrocious, you could hear the shared camaraderie of every hiker who's ever been caught in a downpour. I find it refreshing.
The princess chose to attend a relatively low-key match, Arthur Ferry against Otto Virtanen, rather than just showing up for a finals weekend photo shoot. That detail might seem minor, but to tennis fans, it signals a genuine interest in the sport, not just the corporate hospitality. Deborah Jevons, the AELTC chairwoman, was also part of the chat, and from what can be gathered, they discussed the challenge in a relaxed way that suggests Catherine was comfortable being unguarded. This wasn't a staged media moment. It was a real conversation accidentally overheard and then shared with millions. And in the 2026 media landscape, that kind of organic, slightly rough around the edges content travels faster and connects deeper than any formal interview. To me, the fact that Catherine was willing to talk about the pain and the soaking and the stoically British stubbornness in that setting shows a media strategy that is, dare I say, actually intelligent. She's not avoiding the press. She's choosing authentic platforms that humanize her without sacrificing dignity. Now, I want to share a brief personal opinion, and I'm not trying to be a sycophantic royalist here. I genuinely believe the way Catherine has navigated the last few years is a case study in turning personal adversity into public good. She could have retreated entirely from public life after her treatment and nobody would have blamed her. Instead, she took on a challenge that many perfectly healthy people would find daunting, and she used it to spotlight a charity that is saving lives. That, to me, is what meaningful public service looks like. It's not about waving from a balcony. It's about getting muddy, being cold, and still finding the strength to joke about how British the whole disaster was. And let's be honest, the fundraising success, while the exact total hasn't been officially confirmed as of this recording, according to early reports, the donations surged after the challenge, is a testament to that authenticity. People can smell a PR gimmick from a mile away, but when they see someone genuinely pushing their limits for a cause that saved their own life, they open their wallets. It's a powerful dynamic that I don't think can be faked. Now, I want to dig into the family dimension because I think it's the part of this story that gives it staying power beyond the news cycle. According to multiple reports, when Catherine completed the third peak in Wales, she was met by Prince William and all three children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, along with her parents and brother. That gathering in itself is a statement. The Middletons have long been portrayed as a close-knit, solidly middle-class family that provides a grounding force for the future queen. Having them there, visibly proud and muddy, reinforces the narrative that this was a family effort, not just a solo royal project. And from what palace sources have indicated, the children were eager to hear about Mum's adventure. I can just picture young Louis asking in that wonderfully unfiltered way kids have whether Mummy fell in a puddle. The photo release showed Catherine in hiking gear, looking exhausted but radiant, surrounded by her loved ones. It's the kind of image that campaign strategists dream of because it communicates so much without a single caption: resilience, family unity, and a down-to-earth quality that money can't manufacture. And I think William's presence is also worth analyzing. He's been heavily involved in mental health initiatives and environmental causes, but here he stepped back to let his wife take the spotlight for her own passion project. That supportive dynamic, according to relationship experts who have commented on their public appearances, demonstrates a partnership based on mutual respect rather than competition. They're a team. And when Catherine says, keeps you going through the hard times, you know that includes the quiet moments at home when William and the kids become the reason to get out of bed. I don't want to over-sentimentalize this, but there's something deeply reassuring about seeing a high-profile woman in a relentlessly scrutinized position lean on her family so openly. It makes the monarchy feel slightly less like an institution and more like a family that happens to live in palaces. Now, let's talk about the royal first element. Kensington Palace claimed this was the first time a member of the royal family had completed the Three Peaks Challenge. While some might scoff and say royals have climbed mountains before, the specific 24-hour time constraint across all three nations is what makes it unique. It's a recognized endurance test in the UK, one that thousands of ordinary people attempt every year for charity. By choosing this challenge, Catherine deliberately placed herself alongside everyday fundraisers, not on a pedestal above them. She could have done a bespoke royal event with custom routes and a support team of 50. Instead, according to those familiar with the planning, she insisted on a format that mirrored the standard challenge structure, with the same logistical headaches and physical demands. That decision to me is emblematic of her entire approach to royal duty since her marriage. She consistently finds ways to connect with the public on their terms, not just on palace terms. And while some critics might argue it's all carefully calculated, I'd counter that even if it is calculated, the calculation leads to millions being raised for cancer research. That's a calculation I can get behind. The atrocious weather wasn't a planned obstacle. It was a genuine adversity that she couldn't control. And the fact that she laughed about it afterwards rather than demanding a do-over says a lot about her character. So, as we reflect on the details that have emerged from Wimbledon and the challenge itself, we're seeing a princess who has evolved from a shy university graduate into a genuine moral authority. And if I may add a touch of sarcasm aimed at no one in particular, I find it amusing that some still want to reduce her to just her dress code. Choices. The woman climbed 3 mountains in a day after cancer treatment, and yet someone out there is probably writing a hot take about whether her waterproof jacket was the right shade of green. It's absurd. But I digress. Looking ahead, what does this moment mean for Catherine's future role and the wider royal family? I have a theory, and it's one that I think is backed up by the way the public has responded. We're in an era where institutions survive not on deference but on demonstrated relevance. Queen Elizabeth II understood that, and now King Charles III is navigating a much more skeptical media environment. Catherine, through actions like the Three Peaks Challenge, is building a bank of goodwill that transcends the usual royal news cycle. She's creating a narrative of quiet, stubborn service that appeals even to people who aren't monarchists. By using her own health journey as a springboard for advocacy, she's tapping into a universal experience: illness, recovery, and the desire to find meaning after trauma. According to opinion polls that have tracked royal popularity over the years, she consistently ranks as one of the most liked members of the family. And I suspect moments like this only solidify that. But it's not just about popularity. It's about laying a foundation for the reign that will eventually come. When she and William are king and queen, their authority won't just rest on the crown. It will rest on a lifetime of demonstrable commitment to causes like mental health, early childhood, and now cancer care. The Royal Marsden connection is particularly poignant because it shows a seamless integration of personal pain and public duty without exploitation. She's not giving daily bulletins on her medical history. She's simply showing up, sweating, and fundraising. That's dignity. And the Wimbledon chat with Tim Henman gave us a rare glimpse into the person behind that strategy. Someone who can laugh at a soaking wet disaster and call it stoically British without a trace of irony. Now, I want to leave you with a thought that I've been mulling over since this story broke. We live in an age of relentless digital noise where public figures often feel compelled to share every thought and over-explain their motives. Catherine's approach is almost the opposite. She does the work, she occasionally lets slip a wonderfully candid remark, and then she retreats, leaving us wanting more. It's a masterful application of the old adage, show, don't tell. The images from the mountain, the overheard conversation at Wimbledon, the family reunion at the finish line. These are all pieces of a mosaic that the public assembles themselves. And because we're doing the assembly, we feel more connected to the story. That's why I believe this challenge will be remembered not as a one-off stunt, but as a defining chapter in her public life. So where does she go from here? According to sources close to the palace, there are already discussions about how to build on the momentum, potentially through more outdoor challenges or expanded initiatives for the Royal Marsden. Nothing is officially confirmed yet, but it's safe to say we haven't seen the last of Catherine in a hiking boot, and I, for one, am here for it. As I wrap up, I want to reflect on my own reaction. When I first read the headline about the atrocious weather, I expected a fluff piece. What I got was a lesson in how to turn suffering into service, how to use a microphone to amplify a cause instead of an ego, and how to remain genuinely relatable while being married to a future king. The Princess of Wales has, in her own quiet way, redefined what it means to be a modern royal, and she did it while soaking wet, tired, and smiling. And if that doesn't deserve a quiet nod of respect, I don't know what does. So now it's your turn. I'm curious to know, do you think challenges like this genuinely change how you view the royal family? Or is it just good PR that will fade? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments because I genuinely want to hear your take. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you're subscribed and have the notification bell on because we're covering the stories that sit at the intersection of human resilience and headline news. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.